Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a racetrack and a Grand Dame at that, Virginia International Raceway, as GT World Challenge powered by AWS resumes its global schedule with the third and fourth rounds of GT World Challenge America powered by AWS here at this wonderful facility. And what a glorious afternoon it is. Tad warm, bit humid, but we're at a racetrack and it's bluish skies. We are loving every minute of it. Hi, everybody. I'm Greg Creamer, joined by Calvin Fish. Ryan Marine down in pit lane for the race, but of course in the pre-grid we'll be hearing from him with some interviews. But Cal, based on what we've seen in qualifying, and two, what we saw at Circuit of the Americas, certainly one of the stories has got to be that silver pairing in the Racer's Edge car. They have been stout and continue to do so.
Yeah, I think during the off-season, everyone looked at that silver opportunity with a silver driver paired with another silver driver. Would that be the way to go for an overall victory? It certainly proved to be the case at Circuit of the Americas, where they took 2 wins. As we look at the racetrack, what a classic it is. Just over 3¼ miles, broken down into 3 sectors. The first sector you can see pretty twisty there. Good overtaking opportunity down into turn 1. Then it tightens up, and then really high speed up through those S's, through Oak Tree Corner. That's the far one to the right-hand side. Tight corner to launch you down Madison Avenue, and then it finishes off with a lot of elevation change down through the roller coaster.
So it starts technical, goes wicked fast, and ends frightening. Got it.
Oh, it's classic. It's old school, and if you make a mistake in the wrong area, Greg, it will have consequences.
Well, down in the right area right now, and that is on the grid, is Ryan Marine, third member of our team. And speak of the devil.
Good afternoon, guys. Great to be back at VIR. Great to be back at a racetrack. I'm sure Trent Hinman feels that way. He and Shelby Blackstock, like you talked about, dominant in the opener at COTA. Had so much momentum going, and then we had to wait. How hard was that wait, and how exciting is it to be back in action?
Well, I think with everybody, that 4-month-long period off between COTA and here at VIR just felt like forever. But if there was any way that we could roll into this, sort of newfound off season, I guess I'll say, that was the way to do it, right? We're coming off a win, or a set of wins at COTA with this Racer's Edge team, with this Acura NSX GT3. So if we're going to have any sort of momentum after that long of a layoff, that's definitely the way to do it. And hopefully no more layoffs for the rest of the year. Fingers crossed, for sure. But, we're going to try to do the same thing again today and tomorrow, for sure.
Well, they got the best seat in the house for both of those races off the start. Pole position in qualifying for both races earlier today. And about to get going here on the grid for race 1 of the weekend for GT World Challenge America, presented by AWS.
Thanks very much, Ryan. And, everybody knew about Trent Hinman, and we'd seen Shelby Blackstock racing in GT and Grand Am, Grand Sedan, and that sort of thing. But he has taken to this GT3 Acura NSX and has really been superb.
He really has. It's a strong driver pairing, and I think they're going to be tough to beat because, once again, they've swept both poles. I mean, Shelby quickest in the session this morning that determines the grid for day 1, and Trent returned that favor for his teammate for round 2. So they got the track position. It's all about just executing. Remember, these teams are going to be a little bit nervous. It's been a long break, 4 months without really doing a proper pit stop under race conditions. So will there be a factor in pit lane today where one of the teams will make a little mistake? You got that minimum pit stop time of 71 seconds. You got to hit that right on the mark if you're in close proximity out on the racetrack. If you lose a second or two there, that can determine the winner here today, Greg. So a lot on the line. Everyone's anxious, excited to be back racing, but nervous at the same time.
You can see there it's in centigrade, but it is warm, and that track temperature is of particular interest. And we've been hearing things from teams about just unusual overheating. But one of the things, too, is that the temperature that radiates off the track for those splitters and the diffusers, that's much thinner air on the track surface than it is even a foot or two above it, and that can affect downforce and handling. I mean, there's so much that this temperature plays into, let alone making it difficult to cool, especially when it's humid.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors there to take into consideration when you're setting the car up for the race here today. So running a good lap in the coolish conditions this morning, different deal to this afternoon with the warmer temperatures. As you mentioned, the hot track temperature means you're going to have less downforce, less thick air working on that front splitter and pushing the car into the ground and giving it grip. Engines are going to struggle too, should give a little bit of an advantage to the turbocharged motors, you would think, but nonetheless, it's going to be a fierce battle. If you look at qualifying, we had 6 cars separated by just 0.6 of a second, so there's a lot of action potentially out there in the opening laps.
Yeah, and really, really close, and Ryan is standing by with another Ryan who hopes to be right in the thick of that action.
Yeah, and if qualifying is any indication, we expect that to be the case. Ryan Dial, we were talking a moment ago, the guys in the booth, about how close this field was in qualifying. Does that make you pretty anxious, ready to go to get in for your stint, knowing that you should have a pretty fierce battle on your hands?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think we've shown all weekend this is a good track for the Mercedes AMGs, and both Colin and I had small mistakes in qualifying. I think we could have looked at the front row, so a little bit of cloud cover right now, which will be good for our cars with the heat. We struggle a little bit with the turbo engines compared to the naturally aspirated when it's really hot, but I think the key today is no mistakes and fatigue. It's as hot a race as I've done in a long time, and I think it's that whole thing. We're just happy to be back racing at this point. So suck up the sweat a little bit. Look for a good first race back after what's been a tough few months for everybody, and try and put on a good show. It's not a lot of cars here, but a pretty quality field and tight.
It's hot. It's been sunny. You can see it with Ryan's sunglasses. You've needed them all weekend long. It'll be a real challenge for these drivers today.
Yeah, absolutely. But as you said, they're delighted to be here, and they are up for the challenge. He talked about the DXDT Mercedes potentially having the potential to sweep the front row. There is a Mercedes on the front row, Cal, but a bit of a surprise there, and a super sub.
Yeah, Chris Wilson has been drafted in with Winwood Racing, going to be driving with the younger of the Wards, Russell Ward. And Russell's been very much up on the wheel this weekend, so I'm excited to see what he can do here this afternoon. And Chris, as you know, he's plug and play. Put him in there. He had a win in a GT4 Mercedes here yesterday in Sprint X competition in class, and now he's in a GT3 machine. Well, he plops it right on the front row and takes the Pro-Am pole. Yeah,
and he's the AM component of that team, so that's how the FIA driver ratings work. So as you can see right now, there's a look at the 04 George Kurtz, the CrowdStrike AWS DXDT car. And you can see the crew doing everything they can here just to keep a little airflow moving across George inside that car. It is indeed that warm, and the humidity is the other key part of it here. As you take a look at one of the big towers that is being used here is also a water tower as well. There is the number 33 machine that we were just talking about, and really did just a superb job.
They really have, and this is a team that's going to be running 50, 60 races globally this year, even with the lockdown, so it's going to be a very busy year for this team. They're running many different championships globally, and they just seem to go from strength to strength. I mean, I think the Wards, Russell and his dad, have done a tremendous job behind the wheel, and when they draft in drivers, they're either Mercedes-Benz factory-affiliated drivers or guys like Chris Wilson, who are just super, super impressive. So they always put on a great show. I think they're looking for a great run here today, but we've got Porsche on the second row with Fred Pordad. Did an amazing job to lay down the fastest AM time of the session and go third overall. And young Max Root, a lot of people are saying great things about this young man. He'll take over the wheel halfway through here. Just a reminder that important pit stop, mandatory pit stop between minutes 40 and 50 of this 90-minute race. There'll be a driver change, there'll be a 4-tire change, and there'll be a little bit of fuel added as well. And 71 seconds is the time from pit in to pit out. You cannot be underneath that number, otherwise you will get a drive-through penalty.
And the other added wrinkle to the race is the fact we will have the debut for racing of GT Sports Cup, and we have 4 cars and 4 drivers that will be contesting the race within a race, if you will, and their race length is 40 minutes long. So they'll be getting the checkered flag, exiting the track as that pit window opens. So it's going to be some interesting developments here to watch how people handle things, and they are pitted on completely different ends of pit lane to make sure there isn't any congestion. But it'll still, I think, provide some interesting moments as the field now heading out on track under the control of the Acura NSX. That is the official safety vehicle of the SRO Motorsports America, GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. And obviously, people might be tuning in looking at, boy, this is, the numbers aren't quite there. Well, it's a lot due to travel restrictions and COVID-19 pandemic protocols that are being put in place. And these teams have made a Herculean effort to get here, and we're racing. We're grateful to have any cars out on track. And these numbers, I think, for this caliber of car, team, and class is very respectable considering the conditions. And you'll note, even when Ryan was doing interviews, everybody's wearing face masks. I mean, SRO and VIR have worked incredibly hard together along with the teams and the manufacturers to make sure that these protocols are in place so that the off-track is safe as is possible, and I think kudos are certainly deserved to everybody.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's really impressive to have 12 cars in this field here today, and I think what you have is some teams and drivers just looking on to see what it's going to be like as we return to racing with these COVID-19 protocols in place. I think if they see that we can put on an event as we have already, we've had a lot of racing already this weekend successfully, I think we'll see the numbers start to swell as the season continues. A lot of great venues that we return to once again, so everyone's just chomping at the bit to get going, I think.
We are just about to do that here as the field is out. We're anticipating 2 formation laps, and these cars, they did qualify earlier today, so these drivers certainly have a little bit of more recent track knowledge, and that's never a bad thing.
We're looking at the second part of this race, the sports club races. We've got 4 of them in the field. That's a GT2 platform. Only Porsches that we're seeing here. We did see some Audis testing in the off-season. No Audis have been entered for this weekend, but these cars are sensational. About 700 horsepower, so it's an 150 horsepower plus advantage over the GT3 cars that will be starting behind. So you might see someone get a little bit frisky at the start there and start to overlap with the tail end of the GT3 field, but they don't have all of the driver aids. They don't have the cornering ability of the GT3 cars that you're looking at right there. So pretty big delta in lap times, probably about 3 to 4 seconds ultimately, and that should separate them nicely and then let them have their own contest here this afternoon.
They certainly make their speed in different parts of the track, don't they? I mean, those GT2 cars are rocket ships in the straight line, but it's the GT3 cars that have immense downforce and flow through the corners. But to put it in perspective here, the John McGrew, Bill Sweedler pairing at a 148.6, and Ryan Gates, fastest of the GT2 cars, at 148.3. So this opening few laps could be pretty interesting here.
There is an overlap, that is for sure, but apples to apples,
yes.
Pole to pole, I think there's a bit bigger delta than that. So
absolutely.
The GT3 cars should gradually stretch their legs and ease away a little bit in terms of their lap times. But then you got that critical moment. We checkered flag the sports club cars. Well, guess what?
Yes.
That's when the pit stop window opens for the GT3 machinery.
And just want to give a shout out. We mentioned the back of the field, and it's just great to have both of these drivers with us in this championship. TR3 Racing and their beautiful Ferrari 488 GT3s have entered a second car, the 31. And Bill Sweedler, a former GT champion in sports car racing, who's done time in Ferraris as well as other types of cars. Been away for a while. He's back, and he's paired with the reigning champion in Ferrari Challenger, Feo Pirelli. AM competition, John McGrew making his debut with the championship. So great to have those drivers. Didn't run a COTA, but great to have them here.
Yeah, and Bill Sweedler for so long was a stalwart of GT3 racing in terms of big success. He won the Rolex 24-hour race back in 2014 in an identical Ferrari, essentially. And then in 2016, again with Ferrari, he won at Le Mans in GTE AM. So good to see him back, and he's brought along obviously one of his pals who's had a lot of success with Ferraris as well over the last few years.
Absolutely. There's a look at the sharp end of that field, and that beautiful Acura NSX from Racer's Edge Motorsports. Great support from HPD, and they've had that the GT3 Academy that they put on for some drivers during this break to help coach up some young talent with some great pros. It's just a good program.
It really is. It kept everyone busy, and they were at Road Atlanta a couple of weeks ago. They had 4 drivers as part of that academy: Jacob Abel, Taylor Hagler, who ran here last year, and Dakota Dickerson, who's a very impressive young man, and Carl Whitmer also got seat time there, and they were being coached by Ryan Eversley, former champion TCR in World Challenge competition, as well as Dane Cameron, who had a lot of success here last year with the real-time racing effort in GT3.
Absolutely. Whitmer, of course, already flying the colors for Acura in the GT Rivals Esport Racing Championship, and got a big win at Bathurst in that Esport Racing. But we're ready to go real-time racing right now, and down the field they come. Field under the control, Shelby Blackstock with Chris Wilson on the outside in that white Mercedes, as the Acura NSX safety car is into pit lane. 90 minutes of competition, 2 races going on within the field. watching for that green flag, and when the green flies, you can race, and away we go. And Wilson read that really, really well, was right up alongside, but Blackstock eases a nose ahead, Cal. But you can make an outside move here, see if Wilson can pull it off.
Yeah, Wilson was almost taunting Blackstock to get on the gas early, but Shelby just waited back and then got the launch and the jump. Nice clean start here. Fred Pordat an excellent start here in the Wright Motorsports Porsche. He maintains that third position as Barkey has made some nice moves there early.
And Jason Bell looked like he snuck around. Ryan Gates picked up the lead in the GT2 category. So a change there in the early going. We're watching him work through the section of this track called the Snake, and it is exactly that. It is a treacherous little piece of real estate, and then you get into the climbing essence, which is just magical here. Now you see Bell did get, in fact, in front of that all-white Porsche of Gates, so he's leading in GT2.
Just grabbing gears. Hard acceleration up here. Tire temperatures just gradually building. Tire pressures building. So it'll take a lap or two, even in these warm conditions, to get them into their correct operating window. But a nice start by Martin Barkey, defending Pro-Am class champion here. Moves up from the 6th position up to an early 4th.
And I'll tell you, those starts, qualifying is huge in GT3 racing, and when you can pull off a move like that in the start, that's a big moment as well. And see Blackstock now just easing away from Wilson a little bit, but Fred Pordat has been mega impressive here. He's had a lot of success here, and he's raced a lot of Porsches here in GT3 Cup and the like. This is a little bit different animal, but he has adapted beautifully to
He
this
really
guy.
has, and watching him in qualifying this morning, he really looked at ease and was hitting his marks. The car looks to be hooked up. John Wright and the whole engineering squad there at Wright Motorsports put a good car underneath him, but up front, Shelby Blackstock, the perfect start and the perfect first lap as he inches out a 1.3 second lead over the chasing Chris Wilson.
And Wilson under pressure from Pordat, shows the nose wasn't right, really close enough to do too much.
Tucks it in there, though. It looks like that Porsche's working well. Chris Wilson just floats out a little bit wide there as you come through turn 2. And really tight and technical here. The car's going to feel really good right now on these Pirelli P0s that, other than the qualifying laps, are relatively fresh. But as this race wears on, the ambient temperature is going to increase, track temp is going to come up, and the wear rate will be a factor here in terms of the grip available to the drivers.
And then it is Barkey, as you said, the number 80 Racer's Edge machine, chased by the number 1 of Martin Fuentes in that black and red Hublot Ferrari from TR3. Of course, Martin has been an absolute rock in the AM category for many years. This year moving up after dipping a toe in the waters at the Las Vegas finale last year, are racing in the Pro-Am category, teamed with no less than Rodrigo Baptista, who is doing his full Bentley program in Europe, but had the openings and said, I love racing in the United States, and this deal came together. And Martin, I know, is delighted as well.
Yeah, he's a great teammate to have, young talent, and so much success over the last couple of years with K-Pax Racing and the Bentley squad. And certainly has had success here as well on this racetrack. So good to see him have a dual program, continuing to run with K-Pax over in the SRO Endurance Championship this year, as well as here with Martin. And they come into this race as the leaders in the Pro-Am Championship with a win and another podium at Circuit of the Americas back in March.
Let's look at Martin Barkey and the Racer's Edge MBRP Performance Exhaust car. They are the defending Pro-Am class champions. He and Kyle Marcelli, who will take over at the driver change. And had a really strong year last year in Racer's Edge, first year in the GT3 level of competition. And it's sort of, it's impressive to me. One, Racer's Edge, they just made the step up and didn't miss a click, were phenomenal, and then quickly expand to a 2-car program and are just really in lockstep here in both of these cars.
They really are. It was a big move, but for John Meraki, he's got a well-oiled machine in terms of the crew and the chemistry there, and they just took it in their stride. And it's great to see that, he can use the ladder system to climb up to the upper echelons of motorsport like they have, and be so successful immediately.
I was going to mention, too, the 04 of George Kurtz. That is the CrowdStrike and AWS EXDT Mercedes. Qualified 4th. Didn't have the opening lap he wanted. He slipped back into the 6th spot right now. So he's got a little bit of work to do. But as you can see, it looks like Ryan Gates did get, yes, he did. He got back around Jason Bell. And Ryan in that beautiful white Porsche that runs in the 311 RS Motorsport program, which is a new racing arm of 311 RS, which is the company that they've done with development work and the like, but it's their racing arm. Goldcrest Motorsports involved in helping hustle that program along. The team, Ryan, and the fact, I think they're out of Minnesota. Of course, Goldcrest based in the Atlanta area, but working well together.
Yeah, they are, and I looked at his resume. He's a track attack champion, had a lot of success with a Mitsubishi Lancer Evo. They were kind of known as the kingpins of that era, and then once that stopped, they moved on to the Porsche platforms, and kind of fun to see them entering here. But now we see a great battle developing for that 4th position as Martin Fuentes in the Ferrari is putting the pressure on Bucky. He looks down to the inside, deep on the brakes. Just squeezes in there.
Nicely done.
Nice clean move. Martin saw him coming and just gave him just enough room, tried to deter him, but couldn't stop Martin making his way through after not the first lap he was looking for.
I think that was a great move by Martin, because he looked inside, then went back outside, and I think Martin said, okay, he's not going to do it. And right as Martin said, I'm here, Martin popped to the inside and then managed to get it stopped, because that was a late, decisive move, but it worked. And big credit, as you said, to Martin Barkey for being able to make sure there was no contact there. That's smart in the early going here.
Just love watching these cars float speed up through the S's, just hopping over the curbs a little bit. You can't use too much of them, otherwise you'll start bicycling and be up on 2 wheels, and that can get a little bit wild and get you off course, particularly through that final left-hander turn 10. And slowing things down, patience, 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 just to get on the power early and launch yourself down Madison Avenue, as they're doing right now. Tails away down this back straightaway. Terminal speed, about 160 to 165 for these GT3 cars, and about 175 for the sports club races here with the Porsche GT2 platform.
That is just wicked quick. You were talking about bicycling on those curbs. It's not quite as bad as it would be with a ground effects car, but you get up on the curb enough and get enough air, you do spill downforce off of that rear diffuser and even off of the splitter up front if you get that too aggressive, and that's not a good thing in speed.
Certainly not. Now we're looking at this battle that is now for 5th. So Barkey holds down the 5th position now, having been passed by Fuentes on that previous lap. George Kurtz trying to regroup here. Had a nice qualifying run, which was actually stymied a little bit by John McGrew having a spin, and both Askew and Kurtz had to take evasive action through the turn 5 area this morning, and the grass was very wet from a storm we had here last evening at the circuit. They went for a bit of a ride and kind of lost their rhythm, so it was a nice late lap by George Kurtz to put the car back up into the 4th position on the grid.
Boy, and Martin Fuentes, when he got around Kurtz, he ran around Martin Barkey. He ran down Fred Portad in a very short amount of time. I think Martin is liking the way that this TR3 Hublot Ferrari is feeling right now, and he is just flying.
He really is. He just laid down the fastest lap of the race, and he certainly has some speed to deal with. And you know Martin, he just loves to win. He always seems to win a handful of races every single race here, and going for his 3rd consecutive victory. Problems here.
Stu Frederick, I think. One of our GT2 competitors, lone driver running in the iron category, and tough to tell exactly where that is. There's a lot of beautiful grass here. It's down at the end of Madison Avenue.
Yes, I'm assuming he just pulled off some kind of technical issue. Didn't make the 2nd qualifying session this morning, and we saw him have like a brief off, just dropped a couple of wheels, got it back to pit lane, didn't see any further action, so I'm not sure if that created an issue. Oh, here we see what's happening. Oh. Just a late move down at the inside of John McGrew, some contact. And maybe that's the reason that he's now got a technical issue and has had to park the car.
It could be, so decent little hit there, and we are now full course caution as a result. And the Acura NSX comes out and finds its similar race trim version, and we'll sneak in front of it here to pick this field up. Yeah, that was, Frederick was giving it a heck of a run and just a little bit too optimistic. And the other question is, looks like the number 31, the TR3 entry of McGrew, he may not have had any significant damage, because it looked like that was kind of center on that right side. So we'll see how he's doing.
Yeah, sometimes you can get lucky.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
if it center punches the door versus one of the wheels in the suspension components or some of the critical aero elements on the front splitter or the rear tail. Good to see Sweeler up to speed when he takes over, because he was laying down some good laps this morning on his return to this form of racing.
Yes, he was. It's just nice to have him back in the paddock. He's just a nice
character.
gent. Yeah, he is that.
He gets it, understands the game. Very successful over the years with his business, and when he's doing well there, he likes to be at the racetrack. Longtime partner of Townsend Bell, who's now an avid broadcaster and still racing himself for the Lexus team.
I always thought ZZ Top wrote Sharp Dressed Man kind of with Bill Sweeler in mind.
It's pretty dapper, that is for sure.
Yes, indeed.
Dave Askew.
It's a special weekend for him with his daughter Olivia making her pro racing debut in the TCR category here.
Yeah, and she has been very impressive. They try to get her a lot of track time. She's done a lot of testing, not a lot of racing, and certainly a baptism of fire here this weekend in terms of the level of competition in the TCR class. But David has certainly given her a great opportunity. And talking to Ryan Dial, who's been around here at Test, said she is really impressive. She has really been brought up the right way. She's not intimidated at all, and has an impressive turn of speed. So fun to see.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of athleticism in that family, and you know, sporting them with Dave's, you know, sailing, open ocean sailing racing. She won a world championship in junior freeride skiing. I mean, obviously they've got the competitive gene pretty well welded in there.
Yeah, and again, talking to Ryan about this squad, he said David just wants to drive. If he's not doing something on the weekend, he wants to get the car out and get some lapping done at Utah Motorsports campus. I mean, he just wants to continue to learn the craft, learn his new trade.
That's the commitment, and he's growing a pretty nice race team in the process with the XDT, isn't he?
Unfortunately, they've got this car on the wrong side of the road to get to pit lane, so they've probably got to wait for the whole field to go through before they can move over to the right.
Well, the good news is, unless there's debris anywhere, and I didn't see much where the original contact happened, we should now be able to get back to green here pretty quickly.
The key, as we saw this morning in one of the other races, was there's a lot of marbles out on that racetrack, so when you're running around at this speed with hot tires, it's like a snowball will just pick those up. So it's very important for the drivers that they get really aggressive with their steering inputs to try and clean those tires off before we get back to green flag racing again.
Actually, Michael Cooper in the sprint race earlier today for GT4 put on a clinic in how you scrub tires in a strategic fashion here, and it paid off handsomely, so it is important. Look and see, so there's damage to the front, but it looked like then he may have pancaked a little bit and got damage in front of that rear wheel too, huh?
There's a wheel spiral in the paintwork just ahead of the left rear fender flare, and some damage up front on the splitter and frontal area. So maybe you've seen some temps or something starting to get screwed, not sure. It's a shame. I mean, just at this stage, it's early in the game for this new category. The important thing is to get laps and learn the race car, learn the new racetracks.
Watching that safety car, the Acura NSX, and the lights do go out, so we should be going back to green this time by. And it's at this point on the track that, in theory, you're supposed to start easing away from doing all the bob and weaving. People trying to get some good tires clean here. Get ready for this restart here. Blackstock. It opened up a little bit of a margin over Wilson. Now we're going to see whether Fred Pourdad has an opportunity to go after Wilson. Fuentes looked to be really fastest guy on the track right before that caution came out, sitting fourth in that black and red Hublot Alpha Prime Ferrari from Squadra Corsa. And here we go. Speeds are starting to pick up as the NSX safety vehicle, the official safety vehicle, has made its escape and heads into pit lane. And Blackstock didn't wait for much, did he? He just
made
went.
his escape as well.
He sure did.
That was perfect. Just timed that nicely. And off he goes. Green flag racing once again. Chris Wilson going to go chase him, but I think the real battle is going to be between Fuentes and Portad for that third position on the road.
Behind them, Barkey and Kurtz. Pretty close quarters as well. Look at Martin just throwing that around, going to throttle here.
Super impressed with Fred's performance here this weekend.
Absolutely.
He didn't have the best start to the weekend at COTA, got through practice sessions, then in qualifying, had a big incident coming on the front straightaway, which precluded his young teammate from taking the reins for a qualifying session of his own. They came through and scored a double victory in the AM class, but that probably hurt his confidence a little bit, but he's come here and rolled up very much ready to go.
Well, as we said, he's got a lot of laps here. I think he's very comfortable on this track. And that incident, as I recall, happened. It was in it was a damp and drying track, which at COTA, which can really obviously catch you out. And well, I'll tell you, Ryan Gates is impressive in that GT2 car, isn't he? His pace.
Yeah, he's up on it and taking advantage of what that car will provide. I mean, it does have some electronic gates, it does have ABS, it does have TC, but just not the handling and aero of the GT3 cars.
The run of Portad here.
You can see Chris, he's just hugging that left side. You don't want to give anyone the left lane, otherwise it makes it easier for them to outbrake you into that slightly curving brake zone for the roller coaster. Martin looks like he's now got his tires back up to temp. He may have been struggling with a little bit of pickup there and was a little bit squirrely there on that restart lap.
Just got a quick update off air that Frederick's day is done, unfortunately, for the former Pirelli World Challenge GT competitor. The damage to the suspension from that contact, and they're parking it. Get fixed for tomorrow.
Yeah, that left front probably took a bit of a hit there on the Ferrari of McGrew. Portad there, that wasn't an attempt at a pass, I don't think. He was more just setting up in the middle of the road in case Martin made a big lunge down the inside. But at the same time, it looks like Wilson's struggling a little bit getting through turn one. Just having to stay on the brakes a little bit longer than releasing the brake pressure and flowing through that corner.
Tend to see a variety of lines through turn one. Is that just a matter of what your car is doing well at that point?
I think so. I mean, I think if the car is turning in well and has good stability, then you take a slightly wider arc. But if you're a little bit nervous on the rear, you're going to kind of make a shallower approach. But then you've got that critical phase where you're asking the car to do a lot of turn then right at the mid part of the corner. And I think that's where you can be taken advantage of. Portad's car looks to be working really well here this weekend.
Yeah, it does. Boy, Martin carries some speed through turn 10.
I think that's just the experience factor there. Martin's driven here a lot. Fred has not raced so much in certainly these cars at this level, so I think Martin's just more comfortable putting on that ragged edge and running out wide there on the exit of 10 and using all of the road.
There's George Kurtz in the CrowdStrike AWS DXDT Mercedes with a good battle right in front of him. Martin Barkey in the number 80 Racer's Edge Acura NSX GT3, the MBRP entry. And in spots, Martin able to ease away a little bit. In other places, Kurtz is all over him. And less than a second adrift of both of them is the other Team DXDT car, the Usalco Security National Mortgage entry of Dave Askew.
Yeah, and Askew's doing a really nice job. His lap times look really good. Lapping just about a second and a half slower than our overall leader right now, which is pretty respectable. So I think he's got his teammate there up ahead. That's a good incentive for him. He can see the marks, see where he's getting it well down, and try and lay these wheel tracks right on top of his.
Shelby just carving it beautifully here. That margin, a little over 2.5 seconds back to Wilson.
And you may see him just kind of manage his pace and maybe like the last 5-10 minutes before you're going to do that pit stop exchange. Maybe use the rubber up a little bit more then in case you get another reset. You want to have something to defend with.
Martin, at times you can barely see the nose of that Hublot Ferrari underneath that wing of Portad. He's so close in so many spots. Of course, with these cars, they are a lot of aero is important to get good air on the nose, and you stay behind somebody for a while, it can affect your aero, but on a day like today, it also can affect your cooling.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think Martin may have just a sniff more lap time in that Ferrari than Portad has, so if he can get by him, And the car he really wants to chase down is that Mercedes, because that's the battle for class lead, as Wilson has the lead in Pro-Am, second on the road, Fuentes second in Pro-Am, fourth on the road. And that's the key. You've got to really maintain big picture focus in terms of who you're actually racing against for points.
Boy, Kurtz makes up a huge amount of ground in the braking zone for 14, doesn't he?
He looks to be really strong there. I mean, the Mercedes is very well suited to this racetrack. Medium high-speed corners is really good. It's got good compliancy over the curbs as well. And this Evo kit seems to have made it a little bit more driver-friendly, a bit more margin of, a bit more window to work with.
Kurt's little skate there. David Eskew has really closed up on this group now.
Yeah, David looks good. It's one of the strongest runs we've seen him have in this class, so he's hanging tough with his teammate. George may have just got into the ABS a little bit there and just had to wait on the car a little bit.
That's one of the things about ABS, isn't there? You know, a lot of people think it's just this panacea and it solves everything, but ABS is great until it's not.
Yeah, it's taken away braking pressure ultimately, and it can unsettle the car a little bit. It's a bit of a safety net in terms of lockup, but you know, it's not going to slow it down any quicker. It just prevents you locking up and maintaining control of the car. Martin looks racy through there. A couple of laps ago, I thought he was going to poke his nose down at the inside. He thought bad rather, because Fred is still rolling good speed right now. If there's any tire degradation amongst these this group here, that may be a factor here and may open up some opportunity for a pass.
Well, yeah, I was watching Martin, the speed he carries through the last of the climbing S's and through 10, he makes up a lot of ground. But then the exit getting through turn 7 or to 11 and 12, Oak Tree. So the run out of there just doesn't quite match Fred's, and part of that is, you know, those Porsches, they still have that engine right over those drive wheels. You get that squared up a little bit, you get that extra weight grip, and it pays off.
Yeah, it certainly gives it the traction and the launch ability off the slow corners. So Blackstock extends that lead. Now it's up to 3.7 seconds. Running really good lap times. That last lap just a couple of tenths off his best, which is the fastest of the day. He has the fastest lap so far at 147.098.
How about that lap Wilson just turned? 47.3. For a guy that doesn't drive the GT3 stuff that often, Wilson, hardly a surprise. He's so good, but
Martin
yeah.
is working him up.
He is.
How much patience will he display?
Well, that's one of the things about this track. It is an amazing racetrack, but it is not one of the easiest places to pass.
No, there are some opportunities, but when you're pretty evenly matched, you're taking a little bit of a risk. Depends who you're racing with. If they're going to give you, if you make a lunge down the inside, if they don't give you any racing room, typically it's going to end up in tears. So you can see Portad there just rolls really good speed. I love the way he releases the brakes on the entry to Oak Tree and just rolls through the corner. Doesn't try and stop it, just then gradually picks up the throttle. Martin picking up the draft here.
This is the closest he's been coming out of Oak Tree.
About 160, 165 miles an hour peak speed here for the GT3 cars. But he's not close enough to really make Fred compromise his line. It's like Fred has turned his mirrors down and not paying any attention to him. Well, that's the behavior that we're seeing from the car.
Very tricky final corner. Blast down the short chute, the pit straight.
Tell you what I'm licking my chops at is the thought of Baptista and Max Root picking up from where these two guys leave off.
No kidding.
I think the pit stops are going to be super crucial here today, as they always are. But I think, again, as we said, with the big break, you can practice your pit stops, but until you get the heat of the battle in terms of green flag conditions, that's when mistakes and errors can happen.
Here's your leader in the GT2 overall category, they call it. 3 different categories within the GT2 and GT Sports Club ranks, is the official phrase for it. Is you've got overall, and then you've got titanium, which is for drivers 50 to 59, and iron for drivers 60 and over. But Gates currently right now sits 8th overall, Cal. He's got a best lap of a 49.8. Oh, and Portad, big ride, and it's going to get around on him.
I was worried where he's going to come back on the track
Yes.
then. Fortunately, I think the following traffic just eased up enough to clear him. So was it a mistake? Was it a touch? Let's have a look. No, he just misses his turn in. He's got a little bit wide, got out in the grey, out in the marbles, and couldn't get a turn.
Yeah. Well, you had talked about, does he have damage to the right rear?
Yeah, he does. So maybe that's why he couldn't turn the car. Broken rear suspension possibly, and that didn't allow him to turn into the corner.
That could be, yeah.
Just changes all the cross weight. What it does, it's like having a chair at a restaurant where you got one leg that's uneven. It then takes the weight off the opposing corner, the diagonal corner. So if he's lost suspension in the right rear as he was turning in, it would take weight off the left front, which he needed to turn through that corner.
Well, and he is, I've been watching him, and he's been pretty aggressive on the curbs, particularly working through the snake and the like. And a lot of torque load with the power of these cars. You just wonder if that, yeah, it is. So that's not something you generally, if it's broken suspension, it doesn't fix fast.
Let's take a look here and see if he abused one of the curbs a little bit earlier leading up to this. Pretty good. Right there, brakes.
Yep.
You could see the puff of smoke there as he turned in. He actually did a pretty good job of keeping it together. So lucky though that those cars weren't split second closer.
So that's a limp in, and then obviously the Wright Motorsports crew will get after this car in a hurry. If they can get it fixed and get him back out just to get some points, you have to finish so many percentage, you know, a certain percentage of the race. Oh, and an off here for Martin as well. That's up, is that Oak Tree?
It is.
So he didn't give up his spot. Let's watch it here.
Just try to take in too much speed and you get to a point you just can no longer get it turned. The track continues to turn and you're just on too big a radius through the previous corner and it'll bite you. You got away with one there, Greg.
It sure did.
Typically you end up in the tires with big damage.
So now he's got Martin Barkey a lot closer than he was. It looks like Dave Askew, yep, is around Kurtz. Now here's the work they're going to have to do.
Yeah, they need to do 70% of the laps by the overall leader here today to score points. And again, these are the AM class leaders coming in with a sweep of the AM class spoils at Circuit of the Americas.
That crew can get it done. And if you can get back out, obviously you can get some points here in the AM field, just because, again, we talked about the entries with all of the travel restrictions and protocols and the like. Not a huge AM entry, so they can still get some pretty valuable points. It's like Martin Fuentes' left mirror there. Did he get that close to the tires? He tinked the mirror and didn't hit the car?
Possibly.
That's getting away with one.
It certainly is, and he just looks out the side view and he can tell how close he was for a big one. It's unfortunate that right rear is not an easy fix because you got the drive wheels obviously on the rear on the Porsche and right rear corner, the half shaft and everything all connected to that. But John Wright has been used to running endurance competition and getting cars bad out on the racetrack, so we'll see how well set up they are for this relatively short semi-endurance event now, right? 90 minutes with a pit stop, see if they geared up for it.
Exactly, see what they could pull off. Meanwhile, let's get down to the pits and Ryan Murray.
Well, bad news for the Wright Motorsports team. They're going to have to take this car back behind the wall. They've got a broken half shaft, it sounds like, at the rear of that car. So it's more than just the tire issue. They were cleaning out a bunch of rubber, but in doing so found a bigger issue. And so Fred Portad about to pull that 911 back to the paddock area.
Oh, that's a tough break, but their competition in the AM class, John McGrew, having a little bit of a moment here, has gathered it up. See if we can... It's that tricky exit at turn 10. But been able to get the Tommy Cooper Stanley Tier 3 Racing Ferrari back and going again. And that other car in your frame is Jason Bell, sitting second in the GT2, the GT Sports Club class.
They're about 30 minutes into their 40-minute race. About 10 minutes left on the clock for the GT2 cars, the Sports Club races.
Looks like Martinez calmed the mist a little bit, if you will, and now is starting to ease away from Barkey once again.
Nisku has got around Kurt, so he's having a really good day here, which bodes well for Ryan Dial, who's going to take over the reins of that car.
Well, they had that little bit of damage in that that incident. They were taking avoidance. Ryan got in the car and went out and just worked, sort of drove through the problem at that point to get a good time in, and that DXDT crew obviously did the fix, but they seem to have got that fix right.
Blackstock's fastest lap now is a 146.48. No one else in the 46s here today. 47s is kind of the next marker. Stretch that lead out up front to 5 seconds, which will give the crew, Racer's Edge crew, nice little buffer, and that pit stop window opens in exactly 9 minutes. It's not necessarily the leader that will have the first opportunity to make that pit stop. Changing the regs from a couple of years ago where it had to be the leader have the first chance to make the pit stop, but now as soon as the clock hits 40 minutes in, anyone can dive in.
Look there at an anxious co-driver, ready to hop on board. And actually there were some questions of the stewards here that said, do we have to wait for the official radio call and it pops up on the screens that the pit window was open, or if we know we can get there, can we make the move to pit lane first? And they never did get the answer on that, but that just leads to what you're talking about. You don't have to do it. Now here's the question I would ask, where you've got a scenario here where it's the AM drivers and the Pro-Am that are starting. So in theory, the faster drivers would be the guys getting in. Normally those AM drivers come in right when it opens, you get the fast guys in. Might they delay that a lap here to make sure that those GT Sports Club cars are all in and out of the way before they start diving into the pits?
I think so, because you've got kind of a strength dynamic that may occur where the GT Sports Club racers are finished with their race. They're not going to hammer all the way back to pit lane, even though the stewards would certainly advise them to do so. So if they start to ease up going down through the roller coaster and you're up behind someone and then you come into pit lane behind them, that can cost you precious seconds. So yeah, I think if you're in clean air, maybe wait a lap or two just to make sure you're not caught up in any of that kerfuffle on pit lane. And for Blackstock and Hinman, they've probably got the smallest delta between their drivers, with them both being silver rated.
And Martin Fuentes, Cal, just turned a 147.0. That's second fast lap of the race right now, second only to Blackstock. So he has really found some pace. Wilson turns his best, a 147.139. Well, he is evergreen, Chris Wilson is.
Fuentes drops his mark into the 46s. Only the second driver in the 46 range, 146.8. This is a great little battle here between Barkey, Askew, and Kurtz. I understand that David has sold his interest in the Usalco Corporation recently, so it might give him even more time to focus on his racing activities. He's doing really well here. I think the lockdown has benefited some teams and has allowed these guys to do a little bit of testing at their home track in Utah, as well as visiting here for a couple of days running, and you can see it showing in how confident David and George are behind the wheel of their respective machines.
Well, as I recall, they didn't get the cars that much before the season started in COTA, so they didn't get a whole lot of time to sort, develop, and learn, did they?
That's right. I think it was about a week before the first race they got the final chassis, so it's kind of a longer off season than they had last year. Finishing up in Vegas, and all
right, 5.5 minutes away from the pit window opening and the checker flag for it would be Ryan Gates, who's just doing a superb job, up to 7th overall right now, Cal. I'm impressed officially.
Yeah, looking at it is tough with some of these drivers. We don't know much about them. Obviously, that knowledge base will increase as we see them race throughout the course of this 2020 season. But looking at his resume, he's always been up on the wheel.
Yep.
And I think if you're quick in any category and you have the ability to transition over to something like this, I thought he had some potential, but certainly demonstrated massive speed here this weekend. He is on the attack.
He is. Well, and that's the thing. If you're a time attack driver, you find speed in a hurry. And what I was wondering was, that's a great format for, when you come to this type of racing for qualifying, because that's what time attack essentially is. You go out and set a time and other people try and come after it and beat it. But what about racing? Well, he has been as clean as can be. Jason Bell snuck around him at the start. He exhibited some patience, waited, got by him nice and clean, and has just been superb in his debut here.
And you can see the lines that he's having to adopt. I think that's because of the lack of downforce that this particular car has compared to the GT3 machinery. It's not as flowy and curvy in nature as you're going around the racetrack. It's much more of a point and shoot kind of race car. Just try and get it lined up and accelerate and use those 700 horsepower to your advantage.
It's nice to see a fellow Minnesotan out there tearing it up. Doing a great job right now. He's got to be absolutely thrilled. Oof. A little bit wide there, but it just shows you he's still going after it. Shelby Blackstock. That margin up to, well, we'll see this time. It was 5.8 seconds last time by.
Just laid down a 1:46.8, about 4/10 off his best lap of the day. Gap is 6.1 seconds. But that can go away in a heartbeat with any kind of bobble on pit road. So, these teams are going to be anxious now as they're getting ever closer to that first pit stop after the lockdown of now some 4 months.
We had a couple of races yesterday that did involve pit stops, and there were some that were pretty much like they hadn't missed a beat. Some that you could tell there was a bit of rust there.
Well, the crews will certainly have been trying to work on that during the course of this race weekend at various times, and also in the workshops back home before they even came to the racetrack. But as I say, there's nothing like that pressure, particularly if you're in contention for a win or a podium, where you have to get it done. You've got another competitor on pit lane at the same time. You've got half an eye focused on them in terms of how quickly they're getting the job done. And it doesn't take much, just a seatbelt getting tucked underneath the driver as they're getting into the seat or something like that can just turn your whole day upside down.
It's interesting, Martin had turned that 1:46.8, and then his last lap was a 1:48.9. And he has been hustling it. I wonder if he had maybe just a little bobble somewhere, because that margin's opened back up again as he was chasing Wilson. There's a look at Ryan Gates once again, the Team 311 RS Motorsport.
He's going to get this lap and one more, and then should see the checkered flag.
Told me that 311, the 311 in that team name is just basically that's the number he's run in his time attack forever on his way to 4 championships, and it was 13 track records he set in that era in that Mitsubishi Lancer. And then when they moved it to the Porsche program and then created this race team, they used RS, which of course is short for Rennsport. And that's how the team name came around.
Jason Bell running second in Sports Club, just laid down his fastest lap of the day at 1:51.9.
I can't imagine how he's still awake.
Oh, contact between the two team cars. Wow. And just literally a minute before they were able to come down pit lane. What a disaster. That's in the turn 4 area, I believe, is where David Askew is still sitting.
There's Kurtz. He was able to gather it up and get going fairly quickly.
Yeah, I don't know if David just had a spin or whether he was. Let's take a look at it here. bit wide there through 3. Kurtz goes to the inside. Oh, this contact.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that'll be an interesting discussion back at the transporter.
Yes, it will.
At the end of the day. Really wasn't a big enough opportunity, I think, for George to poke his nose in there. I mean, David had a little bobble going up and over the curbs there through turn 3, but it was pretty optimistic to make that move, and particularly at this time in the race, it's just really costing you a lot of ground to the other competitors, and a little bit of aggravation in the camp at the same time.
All right, window is open. Good to see David able to continue. Yeah, I think there's your key, obviously, was the fact that it was so close to that pit window.
There we see Gates, who should be seeing the checkered flag, I think, at the end of this lap for the GT Sports Club competitors.
And Carl Leinsing also used the third driver out there in the number 54 Porsche. He's got that great Porsche Motorsports graphic package on the car, and he's pretty stout. He actually ran a couple of races at the Thermal Club Winter Invitational in a similar Porsche. Carl did, to get some experience. But nobody on this day is going to touch Ryan Gates as he brings that 311 RS Motorsport Porsche through for the first win of GT Sports Club competition in North America. Absolutely phenomenal run. And at the time that happened, keep in mind, with the incidents of Askew and McGrew and those guys, he was 5th overall.
Yeah.
When he made that stop. That's a pretty impressive run. All right, right into the pits comes the 63 of Askew, and Ryan is there.
And taking a close look at this car after the contact on track that you mentioned. And you guys have the view of the other side of the car, thanks to John, who's wielding the camera over there. From what I can see, I don't see any ill effects on this vehicle. Remember, this is the car that actually sustained some damage in qualifying earlier today. They patched that back together, and it looks pretty good. What a good stint it was looking to be for David Askew, and it goes awry right there at the end. The car is back underway, and now we'll have to take a look at the time.
Wilson's
no,
off the road.
Chris Wilson is off. That's stunning. Not bad. 2.3 or 1.3 seconds long for the turnover.
I think that's good.
That's not bad at all after 4 months.
Yeah, you'd like to be within a second. If you get it tighter than that, you do have a 1 second joker to work with each weekend. So that can come into play for the second day. Now we see Fuentes in, turning it over to Baptista.
Markey is in and turned it over to Marcelli, about the same, 1.5 seconds of a buffer here. See what Fuentes and Kurtz can do in their driver change to their co-drivers, Baptista and Colin Brown.
A little bit of consternation between the crew members there, between the refueler and the tire changer, saying basically get out of the way. Need to get this left rear on as quickly as possible.
So Marcelli is out. He is awfully stout, and here comes John McGrew. See if he's going to make the move to pit lane in the Tommy Cooper Stanley entry. Yep. Okay. Let's get down to Ryan. Problems.
Yeah, more problems for DXDT Racing. This time it strikes the CrowdStrike AWS machine. Problems with the air gun. It was having trouble applying enough pressure to actually loosen and tighten the wheels. They had to swap it out, and it looks like further issues with that here. Now the car finally off the jack. Guys, that was a long stop.
That was a nightmare.
Yep. That's going to be
20+ seconds outside the window.
26 almost. Oof. Brutal.
That's tough for Colin Brown to now regroup here. Full course
Well, he
yellow,
gets a yellow, though, for
boy.
Wilson's car,
Whoa.
probably. So
that is a major break for Colin Brown
massive.
and that team to have that happen and then catch a yellow. Not good news for our leader, Shelby
No.
Blackstock. So he's got to slow things way down. He's going to lose all of that gap that he had. And then the pit stop is going to happen after a lot of that field would have made up that ground. So big swinging things. Pit lane stays open at this time, and the fact remains that Shelby Blackstock had not elected to make that pit stop just yet. So you really roll the dice in terms of, it hasn't happened very often yet in this form of competition with catching a yellow during that pit stop window where some teams have already pitted and you have not, but it's certainly a big advantage for the teams that have already taken service.
Yeah, this could be hugely significant here. And sometimes they have the ability to extend the window if need be. I don't know that they're going to have to do that here.
Well, the difficulty, however, though, is that they can't play catch-up because Blackstock has a lap on them. Look, there's Blackstock and there's Colin. So if Colin would have just been if that pit stop had been just a few seconds quicker, even a bad one, and he was between Blackstock and the safety car, he could have whipped it around and really got majority of that lap back. But that reward is not going to be there now.
That's a shame. Well, you know, he'll keep going after it, however. And it looks like we're trying to get word on what happened with the 33. We're checking into it. They think it may have just been that the engine just shut down. And Chris had to pull off, and as you like to call it, Cal, do the Control-Alt-Delete reset and get going again. I guess the hot new term for all of the electronic management, the way it works on these cars, is CAN, Car Area Network, like LAN.
So to me, it looks like Blackstock's going to now hit pit lane, and it should really give. I'm trying to think who was going to play an advantage to. I think Baptista could be in great shape in terms of having made that driver exchange. Now these guys are going to lose a minimum of 71 seconds even if they nail the stop compared to the rest of the field.
This is going to be really interesting to see how this all shakes out. And as we're watching this car make its way in, let's get down to Ryan.
Winners of the first 2 races of the season all the way back in March at COTA. That's this number 93 Racer's Edge Acura NSX GT3 Evo. Shelby Blackstock with a great opening stint there. We'll see, like you guys said, just how the timing of this yellow will affect their running order on track. That'll be evident in a matter of moments, but it's Trent Hinman getting strapped in behind the wheel. Shelby is out, coming around to put the final sticker Pirelli on this machine. It's gone pretty smooth so far. Down off the jacks, they're waiting. That's a good sign.
It's always a good moment. All right, let's see how close they hit it here. And 1.6. Well, they'll tweak and adjust on that, won't they, to get down into that second range if they can tomorrow.
Yeah, they'll tighten those margins down a little bit. The first one out the box, you want to make sure that all of your data is working correctly. You do it in practice until that happens in the race. You don't want to cut it too fine. So I think this is a good safe margin, 1.5 seconds. And it seemed like Hinman was definitely ready to go to launch it. And so they had their time into the pit box, then the stop, and then they're on the watch. And just there's a little counter too where the driver can actually adjust his speed a little bit down pit lane to slow it down a sniff if he needs to, if he thinks he's going to be underneath that number.
And you mentioned the joker that you're allowed. You can use it once a weekend. So if you use it in the first race, you can in the second. But we've seen teams in the past that in that second one, if they didn't use it in the first one, they actually time the stop to include that joker second. It's just insane how close they can get it.
Yeah, certainly towards the end of the season, everyone's looking for that little advantage, particularly if you're in a tight fight.
Yes.
I mean, if you got the margins, why go for it? But if it's going to gain you a position or increase the lead a little bit, certainly you want to try and take advantage of it.
Right now, up behind the safety car, it is the 04 of Colin Brown.
Yeah, but a lap down.
Yes.
So the leader effectively is Baptista right there.
And that's why Shelby is just, or Trent Hinman right now is just hustling it because he wants to get around and catch the back of this field. Hey, good news there. I just saw the Wright Motorsport Porsche entering pit lane.
Yeah, they got to do 70% of the laps. The last 12. It's going to be tough. They might just be able to do it. So if they've done 25 laps in half the race, 50. What do they need to do? Yeah, it's going to be tough, I think.
So the pit window is about to close. And I think the standard policy is if there's a caution during the pit window, it stays caution until pit window closes. So then we would expect to be going green this time by for sure. And everything's cycled at this stage, and you're absolutely right. Diego Baptista in the Hublot Alpha Prime Squadron Corsa Ferrari now shows as the leader over Kyle Marcelli in the Team Racer's Edge Acura NSX GT3 Evo. That is the 2 Pro-Am cars. Then Hinman in the Team 93 entry from Racer's Edge with the Acura accelerated service and HPD support. Then Colin Brown. But as you pointed, he's going to be at a fair deficit, isn't he?
Yeah, and just if he was just a few seconds further down the road, he'd have cycled all the way back and been on the tail end and maybe even ahead of Hinman if he'd had the opportunity. So just critical moments there in terms of that spin and also the time on pit lane with the problem with the wheel gun. So what you got to factor in here is that right now you got Baptista going to be leading overall, leading Pro-Am, Marcelli second in Pro-Am, then Hinman. Potentially might have a little edge, might have the speed, but does he put it all on the line for an overall win compared to just picking up another silver win?
That's a very good point.
And it's his teammate as well in front of him. So
yeah, exactly.
There's going to be a lot of risk involved in making some moves.
This is when you, as a team owner, you appreciate drivers with that ability to look big picture every once in a while too, and make a look at it. And obviously for everybody behind that top 3, what they would like to see, they don't want to be the one to cause it, but they'd love to see another quick caution. So here we go, getting ready to restart here, the Acura NSX. Everybody is packed up here.
You've got to wait for the line to make a pass. So initial start green means racing. On a restart, you've got to wait till the start finish line, even if it's a lap car. So Baptista has to be careful here. As he gets a run on Sweedler that he doesn't make a pass or attempt to pass before the line. It's going to be no problem as they're stretched out a little bit.
All right, here we go. Top 3 cars in this queue. Essentially down a lap. Oh, Martin Barkey looking at the outside. Well, that's now Marcelli looking at the outside of Baptista.
Yeah, and that's for the overall lead and class lead as well. So you know Marcelli's going to be pushing hard here. Oh, sideways there, drifting it through turn 3. Marcelli looking for rear tire temperature right now.
All right, heading into the snake. One of the questions for a lot of people had with Baptista moving to a Ferrari is, is that a whole new package for you? Well, he did race one, I think, at Le Mans. So
he did.
He's got familiarity and a lot of it. So, wow, Sweedler taking a lot of that curb.
It really is. And you can see Baptista wants none of it. He's just backing off a little bit in case there's a mistake in front of him. He wants to have time to react and try and settle in here, find the right moment to make his move. Stacking up nicely here.
Now those are essentially team cars, the one Sweedler's in and the one Baptista's in. Wonder if they're talking a little bit and saying, you know, it'd be nice, you're AM, you've got this lock, let me through and then keep that white thing behind me.
Marcelli's got to run. He has got to run. He's got to the right flank of Baptista. Can he get it back over into the brake zone? He does. Beautiful move by Marcelli. If he can keep it together, Rodrigo fights him. Hinman there looking, observing, looking for a way through as well in the red Acura.
And that was ultimately a smart decision by Baptista. He could have forced it, but it probably would have ended in tears. So now he has got to pedal with Hinman behind him.
Yeah, that was a nice move by Marcelli.
Sure was.
Just picked up the draft, got off of Oak Tree nicely. Seems like the Acura's got maybe a little bit more straightaway speed, maybe a little less downforce than the Ferrari that they're operating with this weekend. And was able to make the move, and it was critical. You get to a point that if you're side by side, you think Baptista would still keep the position, but Marcelli just got his nose in front and was able to swing across, and Baptista kind enough to give it to him.
Oh, and it goes from bad to worse for the 04. They'll be making a drive-through penalty for that collision with the team car, the number 63. This is pretty interesting here. That Bill Sweedler, who is a championship-winning driver, but he hasn't driven a lot lately, and he is at the front of this queue.
He's up to speed. He's done a nice job. This is a potent pack that he's got right behind him. He's not flinching. Oh, Marcelli to the inside, I believe. Yes.
Yes.
Gets to the inside of Oak Tree. Baptista tries to go with him.
Got Bill a little wide, and that's giving Baptista an opportunity.
Yeah, and at this point, Sweedler should give it up. Otherwise, it could get ugly here as we've got battles for the lead and class leads going out at him. And what a move that was.
Talk about threading a needle. That was brilliant.
Sweet. You can see Ward as well is doing a nice job, but they've lost time with that technical issue on the number 33 Mercedes, because he seems to have the pace of this lead group at the same time. Otherwise, he could have been battling for position there without that problem for his teammate out on the racetrack earlier.
So Marcelli now overall race leader, Baptista in second in the Ferrari. Right there, the black and red Ferrari, and behind them, the black and red Acura in the hands of Hinman. Clear of the field by a bunch. Ryan Dial just set fast lap of the race, though, Cal, at a 46 flat.
He's got a lot of ground to cover, though.
Sure does.
So that's unfortunate for him with the problems for his teammate getting bumped around there, but we'll keep digging deep. You never know. Get another yellow, anything can happen. I think Hinman's going to be up on the wheel here trying to get around Baptista here in the next 5 minutes. Wasn't the opening weekend that we expected from the Pro-Am champs from last year, Barkey and Marcelli. Pretty quiet weekend, but they scored points, and that's what you have to do. If you don't quite have the setup right and not have the weekend you're looking for, don't throw it all away. It's more about damage control and execution to the best of your abilities, even if you don't have winning performance. And then you'll have your good days like they're having right now, where he has the lead of the race.
Yeah, 4th and a 5th in class for them, but Marcelli, as he does so often, popped in that fast lap and got that. Not points for that or anything, but it just shows that the speed of the car as well as Marcelli. See here now. It's fascinating to watch these times here. They are so close. As they come through here, look at that, a 47.8 for Marcelli, excuse me, a 46.1 for Marcelli, a 46.4 for Baptista, a 46.5 for Hinman. And Dial reset his fast lap to a 46 flat. A lower 46 flat, let me put it that way.
Yeah. I'll tell you who's the fastest man on the racetrack, young Max Root in the 20 car, 145.8. Wow. And that now gets taken away by Brown with a 145.80 compared to a 145.85 for Max Root. I think the real question mark is going to be that 70% of the race laps for Max Root here this afternoon, so he's going to be pushing hard, but the math may be against him.
Well, as we're watching this great scrap, let's get down to the pit lane, Ryan.
Well, we already have a race winner to talk about here
exactly.
in the first race of the weekend. And the history books will say that Ryan Gates is the first ever overall winner in the history of the GT Sports Club America. First of all, welcome, congratulations. How does it feel to be a race winner already?
Thank you, sir. Well, it feels pretty great. I had never done a 40-minute race before, so there was a lot of preparation from my side and the team side, figuring out how we're going to manage that race. But, you know, from start to finish, I felt really good, and the team was relaying a lot of good information to me. So, yeah, it feels great. Great to be here. I appreciate you guys allowing us to run.
The pleasure is ours, but for you, I'm curious, it's the first race of this length you've ever done. What did you learn that you hope to apply tomorrow?
One thing I learned was it gets a little warm in the car.
Yeah.
I waited till the end to put the AC on just out of principle. But in general, I like the idea of the 40-minute race, or, you know, a stop and then more. It was fun to manage the tires and everything about the car and try to be really consistent over each lap.
Well, once again, welcome to the SRO America paddock. Congratulations on the race win.
Thank you, sir.
And one update we did want to give on the issue that brought out that full course yellow involving Chris Wilson. I did speak to Chris briefly at a distance, and he said basically the car gave him the low fuel warning, and at that point it should be able to continue on, but for whatever reason it did not. It shut off, and so that's what caused him to stop on track. But as you guys mentioned, that car's back out and running.
All right, thanks very much, Ryan. And yeah, and Russell Ward, very impressive with his pace. And again, had they not had that issue with the stint that Chris had put in with that great qualifying run, staying right up in that second spot, looks like Russell Ward would have been able to fight a little bit here. And Hinman has gone by Baptista.
Yes. Take a look at how that happened. Just pulls the draft down Madison Avenue. Marcelli did. That is brave. That is really not easy to do. You're turning a little bit to the left there on the brakes to maintain control of the car and still pull it off. Pretty impressive stuff by Trent Hinman there.
Well, the margins that he was executing with, I mean, it looked like he was going to squeeze Baptista, but he gave just enough room for that Ferrari and a couple of sheets of paper between the two of them here. And then it's just a matter of, all right, who's brave enough here? And it's paid off twice for Trent. So now it's the duel between the two team cars, and how important is overall to Hinman and to Marcelli?
I think it's important. I really do. I mean, for a young man, when you're running in the silver class, you know that these guys are going to be on top of things there. So I think their real incentive is to get those overall victories. And he wants to be the top dog. He wants to beat Carl Marcelli here today, I would think. Conversely, Carl Marcelli
would love.
He wants the Pro-Am win, but he wants the overall win. He doesn't want particularly someone from your own camp driving by you here in the late stages.
The other side of the coin is, what does Baptista have left?
It seems like the Ferrari is pretty good over the overall lap, but it just seems to be lacking that little bit mid part of the straightaway, which has allowed the Acura NSX to take advantage of him.
Yep.
So he knows that Marcelli is in his class. He'd love to be in front of that Acura, but it doesn't seem like he's got enough to give right now, unless there's another reset with a caution, or unless the Acura start to run into some sort of tire degradation issue. But tires seem to have been really strong here all weekend long in all of the classes. Pirelli have really shown up with a great tire for this year.
Well, after COTA, a lot of the drivers there were talking about that new tire for these GT3 cars and said that they were really, really pleased with it. They said it wasn't necessarily a faster tire over a lap, but that it was a bit more durable, and over a stint they thought it probably was going to be quicker. And they were really happy with the feel it offered up from everything that I heard.
Yeah, and I think the key to that is as well, it allows you to really work on the car throughout the course of the weekend. There's nothing worse. Pick a championship, pick any year, pick any tire brand. If you've got a tire that's only good for 6 laps, say, for peak performance, it's hard to work on the car because you're always changing. You can't keep throwing tires at it every 6 laps to know, did that change make a difference? When you've got a tire that gives you that longevity and that consistent performance, that then allows you to keep tweaking on the car and know, yes, that was better, that was better. No, the tires didn't fall off. Are we better or are we worse? It answers all of the questions immediately.
So a tire that's that predictable over a stint really helps you develop the platform.
Exactly.
Well, okay.
Looking at their last laps.
Looks like Dial has taken back fast lap at a 45.6 from Root.
Yeah, and Marcelli just laid down a 145.68 to Hinman's 145.69. So the teammates are pretty close. Through sector 1, they were 1/100th of a second apart on that lap. You don't get much closer than that. I would say they're both executing and getting the maximum performance out of their respective race cars, both under the Racer's Edge banner. Ooh, big switch there. Hinman grabbed a 1/10 of a second out of Marcelli's lead. traffic could be a key factor here. When you're running this close with such small margins between you in terms of lap times, can Marcelli catch a break and gap Hinman, or can Hinman catch a break and have Marcelli stymied in traffic and close in on that gap? Last lap, Hinman, another 10th in the final seconds. That gave him a net 2/10 advantage over the lap. Gap now is just right at a second.
So he's trimming it in baby steps.
Baptista looking strong. Hinman looks to be the strongest of the top three right now in terms of pace.
Yeah.
And he's got that incentive, his teammate up in front. A little bit easier to be the chaser right now. He's not getting into the area where he's probably losing any aero effect through these high-speed S's, but he gets about half a second away, then it could start to affect his handling and his balance a little bit. So that could be a protecting factor for Marcelli with the aero effect on these GT3 machines once and if Hinman gets any closer to him.
What really starts to happen in that scenario, when you start to lose the air on the nose, it starts to overheat the front tires essentially, because you just get an aero-induced push, right?
Yeah, the car's not gripping, it's sliding across the racetrack. You're going through with the same amount of steering input and it's just sliding across, and you'll start to even wind more on. And Marcelli put together a really good lap here. This could be a new fast lap for Marcelli. 2 personal bests through sectors 1 and 2. No traffic on this 3rd sector, looks to be clean. Let's see what you can come up with here. Previous best of the 45.6.
Oh yeah, fast lap of the race. He must have had a massive 3rd sector.
Yeah, 45.37. It was shaping up to be a good lap, and he finished it off as well. Hinman matched his best within a few hundredths, but it wasn't enough. So Marcelli is sending a bit of a message back to his young teammate there.
Trent had a little bit of opposite lock there for just a minute. Exit to 3.
He's throwing it away. He's certainly asking for everything that car's got to give right now. Marcelli seems to be in a nice rhythm, getting quicker and quicker as the fuel load is burning off a little bit. Pirellis are staying with him, giving him the lap time. Keep seeing personal best sectors across the board for many of these competitors late in the going. Track is rubbering in nicely. Massive storms here last night washed the track off a little bit after several days of practice and qualifying and racing here yesterday afternoon with some of the other classes operating under the SRO umbrella.
Let's get back down to the pits, Ryan.
Well, anytime you see a couple of teammates fighting with each other, especially when they're already leaders in their respective classes, you wonder, might there be any team orders? And I had a chance to chat quickly with John Meraki, who's the team owner for both of these cars from the Racers Edge camp, and he said, look, our deal is they can race each other as long as they don't hit each other. So those are the standards they have to live up to.
Yeah, thanks, and that's, I think virtually every team owner will say that. Yeah, you can go ahead and race hard, just don't touch each other.
Hinman's got a big lap going here, I think. Personal best, overall best 2nd sector.
Yeah.
Yes, it takes away the fast lap. So Marcelli had it at 145.37. Hinman drops it to a 145.36. So evenly matched. Definitely a game of chess right now. One throws the gauntlet down, the other one responds.
It's fun to watch this duel, isn't it? Identical cars and 2 very, very talented drivers. I was going to say it skated on the exit, didn't it?
Yeah, we'll see here from the 1st sector time whether that cost him any. Definitely up a little bit more of the curb there for Hinman. Yeah, it did. It cost him 4/10 compared to Marcelli. Just that little bobble just got a little bit too greedy with the curb there. And then you could see had to lift and catch it. And immediately, that's a 2 to 3 car length difference.
About 20 minutes left in this one. Baptista now about 4.5 seconds adrift of Hinman at this stage. And because of that yellow coming right in the middle of the pit window, just the way things cycled here, these 3 are a lap clear of everybody else. Dial would be 4th right now, and Sweedler 5th. Brown 6th, and then the rest of the field is a lap or more back. Max Root continues to put down some impressive lap times at this stage.
Yeah, when you look at some of the fastest laps out here this afternoon, it's pretty incredible. So right now, Hinman has it at 145.36, Marcelli 145.37, Dial has a 145.46, Colin Brown a 145.39. So
jeez,
basically 1/10 of a second covering the fastest 4 cars in this race.
And then Root at a 45.79, just a couple of tenths off. He's got a future.
Yeah, he really does. I think Porsche have got their watchful eye on him.
Yep.
And they have such a great setup in terms of these GT3 classes globally, where these young drivers are coming up through learning the trade in a Porsche, and Porsche just got their microscope on them, can see what real talent they have, and naturally you find all of these guys transition up into those factory roles. So Max Root has certainly got his path well laid out if he continue to run and perform like he's doing so far. It's early days yet, let's not get too carried away, but certainly he's been very impressive in what we've seen of him this year.
Well, what's nice when you're running well in one of these categories in that Porsche ladder system, before you even make the leap to a full factory driver, they've got that Porsche Junior program, which is a factory assisted scenario, which helps plop you into some very good rides against very good drivers, and then your ability to showcase yourself even more. And I think we're seeing a little bit of that with the program that John Meraki of Racers Edge has put together with that Acura GT, the HPD GT Academy program, where they're picking a few drivers. And
new fast lap for him, and 45.316. Cab is right there in a second. So far, traffic has not really played a big part in this, but that's got to be on Marcelli's mind, as he's got his eyes like radar up ahead, looking at that traffic, trying to analyze where he may catch someone.
Try as he might right now, Baptista he hasn't dipped into the 45s yet. He's got a 46.2 is his best lap.
Zach has been so successful here.
He really has.
The last few seasons in GT3 racing. Real Time had 7 victories last year, including an overall at Road America. And Racers Edge had 3 in-class victories as well.
Well, and it shows you the soundness, I think, of the SRO concept. If you're going to do a BOP program, to have those, was it every 2 years you can do an evolutionary step on the car? And the first variant of this car, it was the first time they'd ever done it. It was pretty pitch sensitive, and it could be a tricky car. When it was right, it was awesome, but when it was just off a little bit, well, this Evo package has just opened that window up a little bit, and it's just been magic since they did it.
Yeah, it's just a lot more comfortable race car to drive, bigger setup window. And I think along with the evolution and development with the Pirelli tires as well, it's really found a sweet spot, as we can see, with it running 1-2 overall. The gap is just staying right there.
Every lap you watch, you want to see, did somebody just set a new fast lap? And
Hinman's a little bit closer though, 7/10 that lap, so
that's
as close as he's been. He's right in his tailpipes now. Question is, when he heads up through those high-speed S's, is that going to affect the aero on the front end of that number 93 machine? His teammate punching a hole in the air and taking that air away from the front splitter.
And this is that curb that he's a lot more circumspect through that curb right now. We got that one good though. That's
just got a little bit off. Used a bit too much curb on the run before. That threw him even wider and more on the next notch, and that cost him again. 4/10 he lost to Marcelli there through sector 1.
well,
Just amazing when you just ask for a little bit more, how it can bite you and reverse the effect that you're looking for.
well, evidence that, as you fittingly said, every wiggle of that snake can bite you.
In there and just got into that one bigger.
Yeah.
You also got to be careful on the back side of those curbs. If you get literally right over and you try and bring it back on, it's easy to cut down the inside shoulder of the tire. Kind of the soft sidewall compared to the actual tread of the tire. If there's a little bit of the dirt has been worn away from the back side of the curbing, creates almost like a knife edge on the concrete, so you've got to be careful of that.
And that spot where Hinman just had that moment in the snake, we had an earlier race here where I think something very similar to that happened, and they caught the car out even more abruptly, and it ended up with a big impact over there. So that's a tricky section of racetrack, to be sure. I don't know that there's a spot on this track that isn't tricky other than Madison Avenue. And let's see.
Sally just laid his fastest lap of the race. Not quite as quick as Hinman's, but enough to extend the lead up to nearly a second again. Went from 0.7 up to 0.95. What a cat and mouse game this is. I think Hinman just really needs to focus on not asking for too much from this first sector. I think if he runs this clean, doesn't abuse the curbs, I think he's quicker through sector 2 and 3 than Marcelli. And maybe over these last 14 minutes, he can get a little bit closer to him.
A couple of guys that are still down a couple laps but are showing some good speed. Very impressed. Bill Sweedler just turned his best lap of the race, Gallo, 1:47.49. And Root just turned at 1:45.6 for his best lap of the race.
And that's with a repaired race car. Okay, they put a new right corner on it, or what they needed to do to get that fixed, but you have to wonder whether they had a chance to do an alignment setup on that car as well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Sure, they just wanted to get it out there. They're really fighting the 70% of the laps achieved by the leader to be classified for points. It's going to be tight.
Well, it's a 1-2 right now for the Racer's Edge Acuras, and what's John Meraki saying, Ryan?
Let's find out from the man himself. It is a loud pit lane, so excuse me for shouting a little bit to try and get this to John. But how is it for you, the team owner? You're watching your two cars out there running well, but you can't be enjoying this yet, right?
Well, you never can enjoy it until the checker flag comes out, really, but there's nothing better than having your cars. You have two cars in a race and they're running 1 and 2. What could be better than that?
Well, for Martin and for Kyle, they were able to wrap up the Pro-Am Championship last year, but haven't got off to the start I think that they were hoping for this year. How important would a good result be for them if this were to hold?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Last year we led right from the first race and never gave up the lead. This year we're sort of on our back foot a little bit, so it'd be really great to get a win now to jump back up and get some really good momentum going for the rest of the year.
Thank you, John. We'll let you get back to work.
Thank you, Ryan.
When again, Trent getting that curb, that time he caught it more with just the right rear, but you can see the car rotate a little bit, and he is throwing everything he possibly can at this right now and giving it one heck of a run. Oop.
Some tire squeal there. I thought someone was going to be going around, but it looks like they may have saved it.
Yeah, that was my thought too.
It's really good. He's now matching Marcelli through that first sector, which is what he needs to do, and he seems to be a little bit quicker through sector 2 that we're on right now in sector 3. So it's all about execution now, just tightening his belt a little bit in terms of figuring out where the lap time is. Did some basic math on Max Root, and I think he might be good by about a lap or so, Greg, in terms of that 70% if they continue to run at this pace and he doesn't have any problems.
That close.
Yeah, it's going to be really close.
Yeah. By the way, Russell Ward continuing to impress too in the 33 Windward Mercedes. Just turned his best lap at a 46.574. So nice job there in that TechMed entry. Here we go, coming up on 11 minutes left.
There's some traffic.
There we go. Russell. And there's Ryan.
There's 0.6. There's Baptista, about 8 seconds behind the lead duo.
As that Hublot Squadra, of course, Alpha Prime Ferrari in a solid podium position, would be second in class points. Well clear of the next competitor, Ryan Dial, who's about a minute and 32 seconds adrift of the leaders.
Yeah, and they'll be okay with this because they had a very strong weekend at Coda, and Marcelli, who's going to take top points here today, potentially, if he can resist the attack by Hinman. There's quite a few points down right now coming out of the first couple of rounds of the championship. The good news for Marcelli is that the cars up in front of him have shown decent pace.
Yeah, very good point. We are at 10 to go. Good look there at Ryan Dial. He's one of those guys that seems to, no matter what he drives, he's just solid, isn't he? He's just so fast.
He works hard at his game. Had a really big year back in 2012 where I think he did about 30 races and was on the podium about 20 times. Found a really good alliance with Peter Barron at Starworks and running in multiple championships, a lot of success. And
that was the year he won Le Mans, I think, right?
That's right.
The P2 category?
Yeah. And since that time has been in a lot of top teams, a lot of great results, but he works hard at the business.
Yes, he
He
does.
loves the game, and if you give him the car, he can certainly deliver.
He's created a coaching app, hasn't he? Where coaches that are looking to get customers can plug into the app, and customers can look and see who's available, and pretty really inventive, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, a much needed part of the industry. So he's got drivers who are active and like to do a bit of coaching on their off weekends to add to their income and stay busy. So he's got them located geographically appropriate. So if you're a local and you don't want to fly someone from the coast to coast, there might be someone that Ryan has under his wing that he can set you up with that's based locally.
A good look at Bill Sweedler, hustling that TR3 Ferrari around, doing a nice job. As I said, last lap just set his fast lap of the race. Just, it's good to have him back behind the wheel. No question about that.
Sure, he's happy about it too.
Yeah, seriously.
Nothing like driving a Ferrari around this place. After a bit of lockdown, nice to get out and knock the dust off.
Absolutely. I was going to say one thing as we take a look here at Max Root, but just going back to Ryan Dial, he'll always be somewhat special to me because when he first came to the U.S., I was the announcer for the Atlantic Series, the PA announcer when he came over and ran that for a couple of years, and he was such a great character. And then he got teamed up with Alex Figge, and when they did the Indy cars and then sports car stuff, and together they were just like Laurel and Hardy. They were just a treat. Great people in the paddock to be associated with, and just a lot of fun. But we've talked a lot about this, you know, Max Root, the future he's got. But I think the guy in the car, we know Max is really, really quick and has that future. But the guy in the car that impressed me this weekend was Fred.
Yeah, just an incredible performance. I mean, just really, really quick laps. Didn't put a wheel wrong, and obviously he had the suspension failure. Whether that was his undoing by abusing the curbs a little bit too much, who knows? But nonetheless, just a superb run, and that's got to give him tremendous confidence for tomorrow and the rest of the season. Just really, really top job.
I think so too. This is getting interesting. Marcelli's actually grown the gap a little bit, back up to about 9/10, but they are coming up on the back now of the number 33 of Russell Ward, and this is one of those scenarios. You talked about it. He gets close enough, Marcelli does, to the back of Ward and loses some of the air opportunity for Hinman.
Yeah, he's basically saying to Ward, either push, 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 or slow the heck down and just give me the easy way through.
Exactly.
Don't be in no man's land where you're affecting my aero.
And those guys up front, they are still running consistent mid 145s. It just says something, you know. Marcelli, Hinman in the 145s, Dial in the 145s, Brown in the 145s. Root's been there on occasion, but Baptista just got into the 145.9 range at one point. So,
yeah, in terms of pace and result, I think Baptista and Fuentes have to be pretty happy with running in the third position, second in class, because they're essentially only a top 5, top 6 car in terms of pace. So that's a good day when you look at things. Yeah, you always want to win, right? But if you look at the data and see that the car wasn't quick enough and you end up further forward than the lap time is indicating, that's a good run.
That's a very good run.
This is going to get interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
There's just enough time on the clock for Ward's Mercedes to be a bit of a factor here for Marcelli.
Who from the Racer's Edge crew is down in the windward pits right now, working the deal?
There's Shelby Blackstock as he looks on for his third win of the year, which they'll get in class, but will they get the overall as well? Sully just hasn't blipped, has he?
No,
he just
he
hasn't made that crucial error. Yes, Hinman on occasion has been a little bit faster over the lap, but Ward eases off enough to let these two drivers through, so no effect there in terms of the lead gap.
Exactly. Yeah, and every time, you know, Trent gets down to 6/10, 5/10 away, suddenly you look and Marcelli clicks off a couple of laps just a little bit quicker, and the margin's up to almost a second again.
I'd hate to say he's managing it, but he's executing. Do you know what I mean? He isn't making the mistake. He's got the pace in the race car to match Hinman's best. And for Shelby, he'll just be ruining the fact of the timing of that safety car. Otherwise, the position would probably be reversed.
4 minutes to go. The margin, though, coming down again, 8/10. So we should see this lap and 2 more by my reckoning.
See Trent there runs a slightly tighter line through 2 and 3 than Marcelli. Marcelli tends to let it flow a little bit more, but those seem to be equally effective. He's thrown everything at him, but Marcelli just hasn't blinked so far. Couple more laps here to work on him.
Boy, and Colin Brown just set fast lap in the race, Cal, a 45.2.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And, he's got his dad, Jeff Brown, on the pit box this weekend, working with the technical route there at DXDT to try and wring the last ounce of performance out of that car. Jeff is one of the best, and he and Colin have such a wonderful relationship. Just a quality family.
Yep.
Another big supporter of Colin's racing as well.
Here's a look at Colin whistling down through. We'll go back to a look at Hinman here. I was going to say, I mean, off mic, you and I had mused a few times about, we were surprised that we didn't see the kind of speed we know Colin has from seeing him in other stuff in that Mercedes last year. And then he sort of filled in the gap when he said this new Evo package has really made the car, suits me beautifully. Just loves, you know, my driving style, just loves it. And Kurtz has got a similar driving style, and we've seen that improvement in George as well.
Yeah, they're going to have a big year. Things didn't quite go their way today. A little mistake by George there and kind of getting overly aggressive in trying to make a move on David Askew. Cost them time there. They had a bobble on the pit stop. Basically went down a lap by getting trapped behind the safety car, and fast lap in the top 5 is okay, but you know, they were looking for more here today.
Absolutely. And I think they're going to get more, obviously, in that CrowdStrike AWS entry.
Pretty race car.
Sure
Beautifully
is.
turned out.
And one of the things with George is you always, it's nice to have a driver, even Roger Penske said it once, I'd rather have a driver that I have to calm down a little bit, who's just naturally fast and aggressive, because it's tough to train one up like that.
Yes.
And so it's not that bad of a scenario here. Unfortunate today, obviously, but
easier to slow them down than speed them up. Right?
Exactly. All right, should see the white flag this time by, and there's John on the left there, and a nervous group.
He looked to be smiling, but he typically is smiling.
Yes.
He's such a good man.
He is.
Worked really hard. The small team that's gone big time in terms of performance.
All right. Through Hog Pen, the final turn, and heading toward start-finish. 1 lap to go. Let's see what the margin. It was 1 second even last time by. 9/10 right now.
Yeah, nothing to choose between the two of them.
Yep.
I think that you could have flipped the positions and you'd be looking at the same scenario,
I think
really.
you're absolutely right.
It all just came down to track position. The 93 car had it, lost it through the unfortunate timing of the safety car when they elected to stay out a little bit longer before they did their pit stop. That bit them and has cost them the overall win ultimately, unless something dramatic happens here with 1 lap to go.
Enjoying listening to those sounds, real race cars on a racetrack again. Just soaking it up just a little bit. Nobody more so than the guys behind the wheel of these cars, though. Back racing.
Car looking super smooth through there. I was going to say that's the one area where you could throw all away, just overcharging. Turn 11 into Oak Tree, but not Kyle Marcelli. Hits his marks perfectly again. Just a wonderful drive. Just a lot of pressure. Made the move on Baptista, got the gap. And even despite Hinman running down very, very fast lap times, nothing they could do to him.
Absolutely. And that move Hinman made to get around and slot into that second spot, that was a real needle thread. They both have driven brilliantly, to be sure. Not a surprise. That's what they do. But all right, out of the final turn, onto the front straight, and what a day this is looking to be for Racer's Edge, as Acura goes 1-2 and Racer's Edge goes 1-2 at VIR. Kyle Marcelli, team with Martin Barkey, bringing it home with the overall win and the Pro-Am win. Trent Hinman and Shelby Blackstock, second overall, the silver win. Here comes Rodrigo Baptista with Martin Fuentes, completes the overall podium, second in the Pro-Am category. And he was extremely consistent. He was quick, but just wasn't able to consistently maintain those laps. I mean, a 45.49 was the fast lap for that car, but it wasn't sustainable, and these other guys just were able to keep throwing in the 45s when they needed to.
Colin Brown laid down a 44.9 there at the end,
Wow.
of 44.97 for new fast lap.
That's amazing. Meanwhile, welcome back, Bill Sweedler, and welcome John McGrew and TR3 Racing Ferrari coming by, and that's great. That is the AM win. So in his return to motorsports, he gets a win. And that's what John McGrew's been scoring in Ferrari Challenge a lot of in the last few years. But still in all, a great run. There's Ryan Dial. When he comes through, he will end up 4th overall, but 3rd in Pro-Am, so makes the podium. His teammate Colin Brown will be 4th in Pro-Am and complete the top 5 when they come by. But yeah, Colin Brown delivering a message.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one tomorrow. Everyone has a clean race. A lot of people showing impressive pace here.
And here comes Dial for DXDT Usalco. And David Askew. Nicely done. And then Colin Brown. As well. And this is interesting. It looks like the Hinman car stopped. Up by, oh, now it's going again. That was interesting. So let's take a look at the results here. And there it is. Martin Barkey, Kyle Marcelli for Racer's Edge and the MBRP Performance Exhaust Acura, winning overall in Pro-Am. Hinman and Blackstock in the Acura Accelerated Services entry from Racer's Edge. 2nd overall, winning in silver, Baptista Fuentes in the Hublot Alpha Prime Squadra Corsa Ferrari. 3rd overall, 2nd in Pro-Am, Dial and Askew, the DXDT Mercedes, 3rd in Pro-Am, 4th overall, and Brown and Kurtz round out the top 5, 4th in Pro-Am, and the Sweedler and McGrew with the win in the AM category. And what's interesting to me is if we can, tomorrow, that 33 Windward car, with the pace that Chris Wilson was showing early in this race and the pace that Russell showed at the end, if they can avoid some of the glitches, they're in it too. Speaking of, look at this highlight here, as Wilson almost went for the lead early, trying to get around Shelby Blackstock, couldn't quite get it done. But there were some racy cars out there in a big hurry early on.
There really were, and Fred Porter just did a wonderful job for Wright Motorsports. There you see from third on the grid, maintains that early position. They're in some great battles.
Yeah, parlayed a great qualifying run. Then a very, very brazen pass here by Martin Fuentes, getting down underneath Martin Barkey, picking up the spot. And that was crucial. And then this bit of a moment here is Stu Frederick, a little aggressive, getting into the side of John McGrew, Cal. McGrew was able to continue, but for Stu, that was it. And then this big moment for Fred Bourdais.
Yeah, he just lost the rear suspension, couldn't get the car turned, went for a ride. Fortunately, he didn't get collected by the cars that were following. They got the car repaired, got it back out there, and I think they scored points here today.
Then a little over-optimism here by George Kurtz, just tinked the back of the team car. And lucky both of them got away with minor damage, if any, on the car. And then right at the 40-minute mark, Mr. Gates coming through, picking up the win in the GT Sports Club debut. And then this beautiful squeeze play move here by Hinman.
That was just fantastic stuff. That's the highest level right there. And at the end is a 1-2 for Racer's Edge.
Absolutely marvelous stuff, and a win by Ryan Gates in GT Sports Club. So it was a busy event, lots unfolding, and a great show being put on as well. And now teams and drivers making their way over into the staging area for interviews, which is where Ryan Marine is going to be making his way as well. But tell you, that was an impressive run. And Cal Marcelli is impressive, isn't he?
He is, and you can tell he's leaning over there. I think he's pretty worn out, as is Trent Hinman. That was both boys running at ragged at 1,000,000% there to try and get the victory. They both got class victories, but Marcelli coming out on top overall.
I think that's a good point. They were both just absolutely on it, watching those cars dancing over the curbs. I mean, and I've said this before, you know, there are drivers who can find that limit every once in a while, but the great ones live there. They did that for 50 minutes.
Yeah, that was impressive.
Yeah,
just watching the sectors, the seesawing of a few hundredths, a few tenths here and there, and ultimately not much to choose between them. Just the timing of that safety car really caught out the 93 car by keeping Blackstock out there. You roll the dice a little bit. I think everyone was thinking about the sports club factor. How is that going to play out with people come down pit lane? They elected to keep the 93 out, and then that cost them that track position. Couldn't make it up again.
Beautiful cars, to be sure, and an absolutely beautiful racetrack here. And we had that massive storm come through here last night, but both days of official racing here have been absolutely glorious here. Hot, humid, but, you know, it's Virginia in July. You're going to expect that, but just big puffy clouds and beautiful blue skies. In this place, in the right light, is one of the most beautiful you can imagine for any setting, let alone a racetrack. And down in another great setting, the podium interview areas. Ryan.
Well, they got to victory lane a lot last year. That's Martin Barkey and Kyle Marcelli. First trip overall in 2020. Martin, I know the season maybe didn't get off to the start that you had envisioned, but here you are in victory lane. How cathartic is it to get that accomplishment taken care of here today?
Well, Ryan, I think you hit the nail on the head. You know what? We had better pace at COTA than our finishes really showed. Just wasn't our race weekend. But here, you know what? I think it was almost the other way around. Man, everybody was so close here. Anyone could have won this race based on quality times and sessions. So, you know what? I think, once again, I just have to tip my hat to the Racer's Edge crew and, of course, the Acura. It's always such a fun car to drive. You know what? Some of the big V8s have that torque kind of thing, so it was nice that Shelby got a nice early start and allowed the turbos to spool up on this one. And you know what? Just before we got into one, I was able to make or find a little hole in there, got myself through, and that just sort of set the pace. You know what? I struggled with a little bit of front grip for me, but all in all, I was able to fight with some Mercedes in the back there and Ferrari up front. So it was a great run. Great turnaround from COTA for sure for us.
All right, congratulations, Martin. We'll let Kyle off the hook for this one. Congratulations to you guys, and best of luck tomorrow.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
It was Kyle is probably still a little bit winded here. I mean, he worked incredibly hard in that one. You can see Trent Hinman sitting in the open door of that car, just sitting there, intense sometimes.
Neither one wanted to give it up, and I think neither one will admit how fatigued they are.
Absolutely. That's a great point. So that is the conclusion of the third round of GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS here at VIR.